Hello, my name is Terry. This video will cover our Pythian Castle ghost hunt, which occurred on the nights of April 29th and 30th. This was unusual in that it occurred over 2 consecutive nights. The first thing I would like to discuss were unusual occurrences that are not common to the castle. People were experiencing seismic activity within the castle. They were reporting that the floors were shaking and other movements. Things were banging, knocking sounds.
There's banging everywhere I go.
Yeah, on every floor so far.
There was banging upstairs, there was banging downstairs, now there's banging on this floor, and we can't figure out where it's coming from. It's in the back corner of the castle, we have no idea.
Did you guys hear that banging? Remember, we were going through the rotations. It was like the last couple of rotations, probably. At least I know the very last rotation. No,
Yes,
the
second because we were backstage. We even heard it when I got here before all the guests arrived. You know, it's down in the tunnel, and it sounded like it came outside of the tunnel.
But we heard a bang that was so loud that we were in the kitchen area where we got our food, and it shook the floor. Now, they heard it at the same time upstairs, and they heard it at the same time downstairs. And everybody we've talked to that's heard it claimed they thought it came from either the floor above them or the floor below them. It didn't come from any of the floors. People in the kitchen that were getting food ready didn't even know. Didn't even hear it.
My first encounter with this strange activity occurred in the cellar. I'd taken a small group of people down into the tunnel, which is a 300-foot long narrow tunnel which accesses from the main Pythian Castle cellar to a neighboring building. The building is currently controlled by the military. It's a boiler room converted to storage. We went to the furthest end of the tunnel where it is bricked up and turned around and attempted to call out the ghost that is known to walk the tunnel. The first thing that occurred was not the sounds of the ghost walking, but a sound of some sort of an explosion taking place. It was almost like a massive pressure wave was going down the tunnel, and I videotaped it, and I can't account for it. We're trying to figure out a natural explanation for this. Well, the best thing to do for this area is to go dark. Then we'll try some experimenting. Mr. Boots, are you down here this evening? Is someone banging on the pipe?
Sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't sure whether to say anything or not.
Well, actually, I have been down here by myself, and something does start rapping away on the piping. Mr. Boots, are you down here? We heard you last night. Did you hear a knocking down there?
Whoa. Yes. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
Did you hear a knocking down there?
Yeah.
Whoa. Yes.
I'd set up my stationary equipment in the ladies' powder room. This area has been known to produce some good activity, and I'd set up my cameras to document it. While the cameras were running, it documented another one of these booming sounds. The next clip is also recorded in the same room, the ladies' powder room. In this clip, you can hear a knocking sound followed by a very weak EVP that I can't quite tell what is being said. In the next clip, I'd taken another tour group down into the tunnel. We went down to the very end, turned out all the lights, and waited. It was almost immediate that we began to hear the sounds of a man's footsteps walking in the tunnel. And if you listen very carefully and you've got good speakers, in addition to the sound of the male footsteps, you'll hear two very muffled footsteps after you'll hear the set of regular man's footsteps walking. It's very unusual.
I don't know.
Now the ideal thing to do is when you come down this tunnel, you just wait quietly. And if you wait long enough, you'll start to hear things like footsteps. You'll hear them coming and going up and down this tunnel, even though there's no one in the tunnel except you. So I'm going to try and I'm going to pipe down and see if anything comes up. Is that someone moving down there?
I'm the last one not moving. Sounds like it's coming at me.
Sound like hard sole shoes walking on a
It did.
dry floor.
We were very fortunate on this occasion that one of the members of the group is fluent in German. We suspect that one of the people who may be walking up and down the tunnel might be one of the German prisoners, but we can't be certain of this. We had him ask questions in German, and in reply to one of these questions, you could hear him knocking on the pipes. This is a common occurrence down in the tunnel, where you'll hear something banging on the pipes. Can you ask him to come closer?
Können Sie hier kommen?
I heard a pipe bang. Did that someone do that?
No, I didn't push the button.
No.
In the next clip, while we were all down at the end of the tunnel discussing the man's footsteps we'd just been listening to, we then heard the sound of a woman walking down the tunnel. It's very distinctive in that it sounds like she's wearing heels. Again, we're all bunched up at the very end of the tunnel and nobody is walking. Everyone is standing motionless.
And the other thing is nobody in here is wearing hard soled shoes.
Yeah, it did
We're all
sound
wearing
like
tennis
that.
shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's wearing heels either.
This clip is slightly difficult to explain because all of the activity is taking place on the floor below where the camera is situated. I was in the storage room with one of my friends collecting some equipment for the cameras. One of the people decided to goof off and they grabbed the doorknob which accessed the hall doorway and started rattling it. You'll hear it on the next clip. Shortly after he does this, something starts knocking on the door from the other side, much more loudly than what he did with rattling the doorknob. I immediately opened up the door to see if there was anyone on the other side goofing off, and there was no one on the other side of the door. The hallway was empty. We can't account for what it was that was knocking on the other side of the door. something pulling on the doorknob, and then shortly after we heard something bang on it.
Yeah, we didn't see anybody come down the stairs.
Okay.
And we just went out. Yeah.
The next clip was recorded in the backstage area. It contains an EVP voice. It's using some colorful language, and you'll be able to tell distinctly what it's saying. The next clip was also recorded in the backstage area. One of the people on the tour is rushing past the camera. If you'll listen very carefully, you'll hear an EVP voice. It's in a long, drawn-out voice, and it says the word, "hurry." It seems to be commenting on the individual being in a rush. The next clip contains a very strange, almost cartoonish-like voice. We'll have to do further experiments with it, slowing down and speeding up the audio to see if we can make out what is being said. This is a common occurrence down in the tunnel, where you'll hear something banging on the pipes. I'm hearing knocking down at this tunnel.
You're hearing what?
There's something knocking down there. I've got my camcorder rolling. In the next group of video and photos, you'll see some physical activity that occurred to several people. 3 women were scratched at the castle, 2 of them while sitting on the steps to the attic in the tower room, and 1 of them down in the cellar. Also down in the cellar outside the prisoners area, one of the men was hit on the arm with great force, and in the photograph of his arm you can see the massive swollen area of his arm where he was struck. Back of the neck.
Yeah. But it's whelped up.
Oh, but look.
Oops. Did you do that? Hey, Dumphoff, did you do that?
The next clip was recorded in the ladies' powder room. We were conducting an EVP session. I'd asked about the man who'd been struck. His name was Tony. When I asked about him, if you listen very carefully, you'll hear a weak EVP reply, and it says the word yes. Then through the device called a ghost box, you'll hear another reply say ghost slapping, possibly referring to that he'd been slapped on the arm. This is experimental equipment, and we haven't had any time to really evaluate it. So we'll be doing some more experimenting in the future to see if this equipment is valid. Can you tell us what happened to Tony? The next clip was recorded in the backstage area on the 2nd floor. I had the camera aimed at a small room that is known to be very active. This is quite a long clip in that I wanted to leave it intact. There's 2 things to listen for. The first is you can hear the millimeter being triggered. It's going off on the floor in the adjacent room. After this, at the very end of the clip, you'll also hear a blast of air, like a wind rush coming through the room. This is also highly unusual. I've never encountered this in any investigation at Pythian Castle. The last clip was recorded in the tower room. The sound of someone screaming can be heard.
Diagnosed like that to completely stop it.
Mhm.
But
It's got a screen down there.
yeah, just heard a scream.